Faith pulls the timeless realities of heaven into our earthly battles and builds an immutable spirit in us that can stand its ground. After the long battle you're in has been settled, your testimony won't be what this world did to you, but what God did for you. Faith sees the eternal while you live in the temporal.
Thanks for joining us on Life Journeys, a podcast about thriving through the worst pain that life brings. With global initiatives threatening big changes to our way of life, we're going to need to activate Jesus' words about mountain-moving faith. Words That Work is the ongoing series on Life Journeys that is rooted in releasing revelational words of faith that will work every time and with everyone. It's about moving the mountains that keep us from the presence and goodness of God. It's about defining our life purpose and identity through encountering Him until we have the power to move the obstacles that are destroying our liberty and hope.
When the IRS wrongly billed me so much that it would wipe out my entire retirement savings, I found out that it's going to take many months to hopefully resolve it. But God has taught me many things in this season of realizing that I need to rekindle the faith to battle for the long haul. Today I'm talking about the timeless nature of faith that reaches into heaven and pulls down revelational realities that never change. We can live in an immutable or unchanging place where God's grace and power towards us never wavers. We can battle with heavenly weapons that are as immutable as God Himself. Immutability is a characteristic that makes God, God. And faith gives us this unchanging power of God. When Israel was in captivity for 70 years, Daniel prayed about a troubling prophecy he had been given. Then an angel said, "Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that you did set your heart to understand and to chasten yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I am come for your words." Abraham would wait for 25 years. Moses was in Mount Sinai for 40 days and had tested the people. Moses himself was 80 before he began to lead Israel. Samuel delayed his coming to test Saul, who sinned by impatiently offering sacrifices though he were a priest. Jesus himself would wait until he was 30 to begin his ministry. Daniel waited for 3 weeks before the angel could get through to him. I waited a year in Sicily before the ministry was restored to my life. The point here is that sometimes the battles last a long time. Don't fret or lose hope. The Lord once told me, don't give up, because I was getting discouraged with my own failures. You stand your ground in faith and patience for as long as it takes. True patience is filled with peace and unfailing hope. It is a place of rest for the soul as it continues on. The word for patience is painted in scriptural understanding as an army assaulting a great enemy with hard barriers to overcome. My mental picture is from when I was in Israel, looking down from the top of Masada at the patience of the Roman army in taking 3 years to build a ramp up to the top to capture the Jewish city. This is what God is building in me in this waiting period for the IRS to correct a great injustice. I must wait, and I must learn to wait patiently in daily battle. Daily. I'm learning at my old age to become battle-hardened in faith like no other time in life. It's also a parallel battle in union with my daughter's battle with heart disease. It's like Winston Churchill's admonition to England during World War II. Never give up. Never give up. Faith must take us to the place where time is destroyed. It must take us to the eternal dimension where patience is our daily breath. It must take us to the arena of indestructible existence where we have become like God, unchangeable in faith. Faith builds in us the substance of immutability. We're like the soldier who stands with sword drawn on the perimeter of the camp day and night, in heat and unbearable cold, in the quietness and in the roar of the enemy. You know that if one looks out into the night, the flashing lightning will reveal the solitary, unflinching vigil of the warrior of God standing his watch. Be it a day, a month, or a lifetime, he is unchanging in resolve, for he is not affected by time. Time has been destroyed by faith. God is eternal. Heaven is eternal. You're eternal. Faith lives as an eternal being while entwined with this earthly body. It believes in what it cannot see with the natural eye, but its greater eyesight reveals the eternal. It's like looking at the sun, the moon, and the stars. Anytime you wish to look, you will see their presence, for they cannot be moved by any force of man or nature. Faith sees a greater, unchanging truth. It sees God. And all that he decrees eternal shall never be moved. That's the vision of faith that you can have by revelation. What God determines, and when he reveals it to you, it will remain. Faith is seeing the eternal while you live in the temporal. Once you leave your body forever, you will no longer need faith, for you will be living the eternal reality. You will be a part of eternal, indestructible reality. But today, you have your faith as the greater vision of truth. It is invincible. It's indestructible because it is the heavenly vision of what God has decreed. That's the faith of Daniel, who sought the Lord until the angel showed up with the answer. Though resisted for 3 weeks by demonic entities in the heavenlies, Daniel's faith released the angels, including Michael, to wage war until the breakthrough came and understanding was given to him. Faith sees the eternal, unchanging realities of heaven and brings it down to earth, no matter how long it takes. Why? Faith has destroyed time. It's based on what just is, no matter what the material elements of the world demand. If that faith is held in one's soul, nurtured, held on to as surely as one's physical senses, it will work to accomplish the decree of the King of Kings. Why? Because the word of a king is law. It's irrevocable. It can't be changed, even by the king himself. It's unfazed by time or devils or men or earthly substance. The king's word is indestructible reality, therefore it's timeless, just as faith is in its power over time. Now, Israel had passed the point of opportunity to enter into the promised land. They would die in the wilderness for their unbelief because of the giants that God called them to defeat. But when Balak enlisted Balaam the prophet to curse Israel so he could defeat them, Balaam couldn't curse Israel. He said, "What God has ordained, I can't reverse. He has blessed, and I cannot change it. For the shout of a king is among them." The shout of a king is a recognition of the timeless declared word of God to someone. That's the power of faith in battle for as long as it takes, because faith isn't bound by time. It is the language of the immutable, the assurance of the eternal truth of divine revelation. It is as sure as the return of Jesus Christ and the unfolding of the book of Revelation. The prophet Habakkuk was told about what God would do about the ungodliness in Israel. He says, "The vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarries, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry." Back in Numbers 23, Balaam said, "God is not a man that he should lie, neither the Son of Man that he should repent. Hath he said, and shall he not do it? Or hath he spoken, and shall he not make it good?" That's the kind of faith you've been given for the battles that lie ahead. You're in this world for battle. You've been given faith, for it is your link with the eternal power of revelation weapons at your disposal. On the other side of your faith is the everlasting and unchanging truth of God. Faith is like your satellite link with the unseen. Its existence knows that unlimited, timeless reality is there. It's just like your assurance of that satellite when you're talking on a satellite phone to your loved one. I've been there, out in the wilderness where no communication seems possible, and in the darkness, with the wind and the wolves howling, I'm talking to my wife sitting in our living room 100 miles away. And I don't have to shout because in life, God supplies the shout. Now watch this. For your faith will be tested. It's like Satan trying to insert the clock or the calendar into your believing heart. He's trying to put time where it doesn't belong, in your faith. You begin to think, maybe you're not receiving because there's some sin that remains undealt with. You're not worthy. There's a block between you and God. But remember Israel as they languish in the desert for 40 years with Balak breathing out threats of their destruction. What he meant for evil, God meant for good, as the prophet Balaam declares. What you also need to know when you're tested with Satan's lies about sin. God says about Israel, He hath not beheld iniquity in Jacob, neither hath he seen perverseness in Israel. The Lord his God is with him. Yeah, you heard that right. God said about failing Israel, whom he had turned away from their destination, the promised land. I'm not looking at sin in my people. I don't see perverseness in them. I am with them. They had the irrevocable word of the king in their very midst, and it was a shout in the ears of the enemy. Then the prophet reveals the product of faith when it meets up with what men call time. Numbers 23 says, according to this time, it shall be said of Jacob and of Israel, see what God has done. He's telling us that when the darkness of the curses of this world attacks the people of God, and when the devil wants to make his mark upon you, this is what time will declare. This is what history will record when faith enters the dimensions of time. What has God done? Time will not record what the devil did or tried to do, for when he seeks to cry out, God will work instead. In the place of curse will come blessing by faith's battle weapons. After the battle you're in now has been settled, your testimony won't be what this world did to you. You will be a witness of what God did for you and in you. You will be the fulfillment of Isaiah's prophecy of God's people. They have been created to be a witness of my glory.
You can unlock the presence of God in your life. There are revelation principles that remove the mountains, keeping us from joy, hope, peace, and purpose when our world gets turned upside down. Look for these words that work with Pastor Hardika as he shares what has helped him when life got hard. And don't forget to check out his book, The Fortress and the Firebrand, available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Thanks for listening to Life Journeys. Find new episodes every Wednesday and Saturday. And if you're new to this series, it begins with the September 16th episode.
Faith pulls the timeless realities of heaven into our earthly battles and builds an immutable spirit in us that can stand its ground. After the long battle you're in has been settled, your testimony won't be what this world did to you, but what God did for you. Faith sees the eternal while you live in the temporal.